This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bizub. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. How are you, George?
Good morning, Dr. Marlene. Great to be with you. I'm well, thanks. And yourself?
Good, good. Ready to be over this heat or have cooler weather, and it's not going to happen this week. So,
No.
anyway, speaking of heat, things get heated with the parents that we work with. And what I wanted to talk about today, because there's an art to this, and I'm going to get pretty deep in the weeds today with this topic. I should say we are. But when you have a difficult co-parent, there's a way to deal with them, or ways. It's plural, ways. I wish there were one way to deal with them. But there's some tips, tricks, whatever you want to call it, tools for dealing with a difficult co-parent. And I know you have dealt with this too, even though you only work with one parent, you are dealing with the effect of a difficult person on the other side, correct?
Absolutely. And sometimes on my own side.
Right. I was just going to say that's funny because I was thinking that same thing. Sometimes it's your client who's the difficult co-parent. But we've got some ways to work with them. And for those of you out there who might be struggling with a difficult co-parent, there are some ways. And, I forgot now what the acronym stands for, but BIF. I know it's brief, informative, friendly, and factual, or something like that. The BIF form of or method of communication. And I know an attorney who I love working with. In fact, I'll give him a plug. His name is Ezra Hurwitz. If you're in Colorado Springs, and need an attorney, a family law attorney, because George, you're not here in Colorado Springs, so I'm
No,
not. Yeah,
I'm not
but
anymore, and I'm not sure I would deserve a plug anyway.
yes, you would. Yes, you would. But Ezra really stands by and adheres to with his clients, both in communicating with them and in encouraging them to communicate with their co-parents in this manner, but using the BIF method. And I think I have that right, but I think it's brief, informative, factual, friendly, and factual. So stick to the facts. One of the things I find is people throw in extra, what I call commentary, where they just have to make a comment about something that has nothing to do with the kids, with co-parenting, with what they need to do. It's just sarcastic. It's a dig at the other parent. It's anything but constructive. It's destructive. And what I say to that is don't do it back, because parents will do it. And because this parent said this, the other parent thinks they have to say that. And it's like, no, you need to not do that. Somebody needs to stop. And just because they say something that really gets under your skin, because if you've been with them for a while, they probably know how to get under your skin. They know what things upset you and what things are triggers. And if you think they aren't going to use them in the middle of a breakup, I mean, all rules are off when people are breaking up. It's kind of like, I forgot what that saying was about war and something, all bets are off during war and something else, or I don't know the saying, but it applies here, whatever it is. It applies here that some people, when you're in the middle of a breakup, don't consider anything off limits, which is wrong, but the other parent has to deal with it. So, first thing I say is don't do it back. Be the one who stops it, be the one who takes the high road. So, I'm going to let you comment.
Well, I think that's true. And when somebody makes a dig at somebody else, the natural response is for them to give a dig back.
Hmm.
And so they
Hmm.
have to exercise a certain amount of restraint from
Yes.
doing that. And once I think, my reference point is court, but I think that judges appreciate and recognize a parent who is trying to take the high road with the other parent.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, exactly. You're either going to look like you're caught up in the conflict and in slinging unnecessary comments, or you're going to look like the one who is the bigger person and taking the high road. And so when you feel like they won because they said something to you that really did bother you, just take the high road. Just say, nope, the best way I can deal with this is to not respond. And I'll tell you what I've seen happen, George. I know, like I said, you don't work with both parents, but you see enough with the one party you work with. What I have found is if one parent will not engage, like they just won't engage, the other gets tired of being the only one because it's not affecting them when they throw out comments and digs. And so if you just ignore it, which I hate to say, but it's kind of like a child throwing a temper tantrum. I tell parents all the time, ignore your 2-year-old or your 3-year-old as long as they aren't hurting themselves or anything else, anyone or thing else. Ignore them. It'll make it go away. When they throw themselves on the floor and start kicking and screaming, walk over them and go on about your work or your day. But the same applies to adults. We become like children often when we're going through a conflictual divorce. And so ignore it, or at least don't return it. But would you agree?
Absolutely. I think all it does is returning fire just encourages more exchanges that are negative and heat up the situation between the parents. And so the parent who takes the high road might have a tendency to feel like, well, how come I have to do this? And the answer is, for me, in that context, because you're the better person.
Right. Yes. I love that. I love that. That's good. What a way to give them a compliment while they're doing it the right way. Yeah. Also, I'm guessing that you touched on this a few minutes ago, but I'm guessing you're informing your client that this will serve them well in court.
Absolutely. And as I say, the judge, I think a judge has a tendency to have empathy for the parent who comes across as taking the high road in a hearing.
Yes. Yes, I think so too. When they see you both behave badly, then you're both equally culpable. But if one parent can not respond like that, not talk that way about the other, and maybe even actually say positive things about the other parent, now I think you have the judge's attention, respect, and probably their favor in their ruling
I
to
think
some
so,
degree.
because
Yeah.
that statutory provision about the ability of the parent to encourage the sharing of love, affection, and contact with the other parent. I think a judge likes to hang his or her hat on the parent who demonstrates that.
Yes. Yeah. I think they do too. And that's what I want parents to hear. And you can speak to that more than I can because, yes, I'm in the courtroom, but sometimes I'm in and out and I don't stay and watch it all and see it all and hear the ruling. And you do. And so I'm sure you can speak to how it really does favor you to behave in that way.
It absolutely does. And I think if, for unfortunate circumstances, the case has to return to court, the judge, once he or she reviews that file, they're going to remember who took the high road under difficult circumstances. And they almost, I hesitate to say this, but I think a judge almost walks into the hearing with a sense of who is the problematic parent.
Yes, and you bring up a good point. Judges do remember people. So if you're there for temp orders and you're there for initial status conference or pretrial readiness conference or a status conference along the way or something like that, and you've behaved badly, yeah, the minute they see your face, they are thinking, oh, I remember you, you
Mhm.
know, and they do remember. And I think we can change that. We can change their perception if we go in one time behaving badly, but we go in the next time and we're together, we're civil and we're calm and don't say negative things or even say positive things. I think that bodes well, and the judge will certainly change their opinion or can, but they don't forget people. They do remember, and they do, like you said, have a sense for kind of who the troublemaker or instigator is.
Yeah, I think that's true. And we, I don't want to say that the judge has prejudged an issue. That's not fair to the judge. But I think they do remember cases and who
Right.
is the instigator and who is being problematic. And again, that statutory provision is a reference point for the court, and the court
Mhm.
is looking at what parent is recognizing and implementing the right of the other parent to have a relationship with their child.
Right. Well, and it's one of the factors in Colorado of the best interest of the child statute. Which parent can facilitate a relationship between, and you say it better, you recite it better, but you know what I'm talking about. I'll let you say it, but the item about being able to facilitate the relationship between the kids and the other parent.
I think so. And in testimony, at a time when a client or a party is probably incredibly angry, incredibly hurt, scared of what's going to happen in the court, uh, being able to take the high road and demonstrate through testimony the acknowledgement of the child's right to have a relationship with the other parent is very
Yes,
powerful.
yes, yes. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you know it frontwards and backwards. How does that item go?
The ability of each parent to encourage the sharing of love, affection, and contact with the child.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That kind of drives home the point, but it is something that the court looks at. And I was in a ruling on Tuesday where the judge went right down the items of the best interest of the child statute and rated each parent and said, I don't think either of these two are really capable of doing that, what you just said. And so that's not good, but she clearly had gotten the impression that neither parent was good at that. And as I recall, and that was a couple days ago, but as I recall, she did say that one of the parents in particular had gotten better but she wasn't sure that either one. In fact, what she said is, we need more co-parenting counseling with Dr. Bizup. And so she saw there were improvements made, but this takes work, and when I'm doing that type of counseling on a case, it's long-term change that these people have to make because they are mad. When they come in, they are angry. And so if they are in that posture, it's kind of a long-term challenge to turn that around and get them to not hate the other parent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where a parent gets in trouble in their testimony, they say something like, well, I've raised the children practically by myself, so I should be able to continue to do that. That
Mhm.
is not a good approach to take. The
No.
the way there's a way to get that point across, and that may be for a parent to testify, well, I feel like I've been the primary caretaker.
Mhm.
And so in the interest of the children, I think maybe that should continue. Now, you can say that in
Yeah.
court, and that's fine. That's not going to draw any ire from the judge.
Right. But also, what I tell parents, because they'll say that in my office, and I want to prepare them to not say that in court.
Right.
And I'll tell them, even if the other parent has not parented at all, you've been the parent, they've been the bread earner, whatever. Um, at this time, the court's going to give both parents the opportunity to step up and be a parent. And so saying that is kind of irrelevant, and it shows that you aren't open to sharing that with the other parent. And since you're getting a divorce, you have no choice but to share it with the other parent because neither one's going to get 100% of the time with the children.
No, and recognizing that and being supportive of the other parent's interaction with the children favors you in the eyes of the court. You're not
Right.
showing weakness. You're not showing anger. You're not showing or demonstrating that you're using the children as weapons or messengers. Those are all things that need to be avoided, both in court and in practice.
Yes. Yes. Well, and the kids, whether you like it or not, the kids need both parents. They need both parents.
I think that's true, and I want to stay in my own lane here, but I would expect that as the children age and go through puberty and teenage years and so forth, the importance of having both parents can't be overstated.
I would totally agree. 100% agree. Because we need, girls will gravitate toward mom during adolescence and boys toward dad. But girls need to, and boys need to have a good idea of what makes a good mate. And you can't get that from the same gender parent. You get that from the other parent. So yes, we need both parents in kids' lives, especially the older they get. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a parent really shoots himself or herself in the foot to go to court and testify about how terrible the other parent is.
Yes. Yes. It's fine to say we need a little work on things, but to just say he or she is awful and should not have any time with the children, that's not going to go well.
No, no, not at all.
No.
And as I say, I think the judge identifies and has some empathy for the parent who takes the high road and demonstrates that in their testimony.
Absolutely. More on this when we come back. We're going to take a quick break. But this is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We're talking today about what not to do if you have a difficult ex. And I mean, like we were talking, George, not engaging, not responding in kind if you have a difficult ex. I really, truly do believe, and I have people argue this with me all the time, but I believe that when one person is engaging in this kind of communication on their own, the nasty, hostile communication, it loses its appeal when nobody's doing it back. We only perpetuate it when we do it back. And that's kind of my takeaway message today. And I'm going to weave that into everything else we talk about. But it really is the bottom line. Like, don't do it back. Respond differently or don't respond. And I also want to point out, you and I talk about this a lot, but I want to hear what you have to say about this. Even if you say nothing, your kids can tell how you feel by your facial expression, body language, tone of voice, just all the nonverbal communication that you put out there. It shows loud and clear. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And tone of voice, language that's selected, all
Yes.
those communication factors enter into it. And we're asking people at a time when they're intensely angry, intensely scared,
Mm-hmm.
to really find their higher self and
Yes.
take the high road with regard to their children. Fight about finances if you must, but not about the children. There are other ways to resolve conflict around the children. And so litigation really is the last resort.
Yes. Yes. Well, and that's a great segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about. Because if you find yourself simply unable to communicate appropriately and effectively and in a civil manner with your ex, I'm going to recommend that you get a parenting coordinator on board or someone like that, because I will tell you, I can tell parents the exact same thing the other parent has told them, and they are going to receive it completely differently for a couple of reasons. One is it's me, not your ex, who's suggesting this. But what we were just talking about, the tone of voice, the language that we use, and I'm glad you brought that one up because I did not mention that, and that is such a crucial aspect of this, is when you start name calling, it's over. When you start saying you idiot or whatever, it's over. I mean, there's not going to be civil communication coming after that. But this is why you have to learn to just shut up. Just shut up. I mean, I hate to say that, that sounds mean, but I mean it. Just don't say anything.
Well,
Yeah.
the other thing that comes to mind is having parents who are problematic with each other, or if one is incendiary, restricting their communication to emails, texts, app use, and so forth.
Yes. Yes. And if you are going to use any of those methods of communicating, reread it before you send it. And what I say, and I think I got this from you, George, act as though, reread it as though the judge is going to see it. Just assume that the judge is going to see your communication to that other parent. And when you reread before you send, ask yourself, how's the judge going to view what I'm saying? Don't worry about what the other parent said, it'll reflect on them. But what's the reflection on you going to be? Is the
I
judge
think
going to, yeah, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
think that's excellent advice, and there's no question that that's correct as far as I'm concerned, with the court or in the eyes of the judge.
Yes. Well, and going back to using a professional, I'll tell you what I do, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm going to kind of give away a secret or trick of the trade. But if I know a parent doesn't want to do what the other parent wants, when I suggest something, even though it's coming from me, they often think I'm relaying what the other parent said and what they want. So I will often say, I don't think any of you or either of you are really in favor of this, but how about if we do such and such? And it's amazing how quickly they'll get on board if they think the other parent is not in favor of it. They'll say, oh, yeah, I could live with that. I go, oh, okay, great. And I mean, it's a trick of the trade. And I don't know if I should reveal that or not, but it's going to sound kind of manipulative. But you know what? Manipulative is fair game when we're trying to do two things: reach an agreement, and most importantly, do what's in the best interest of the children. Then I think manipulation on my part's fair game. What do you say?
Well, I think first of all, there aren't enough Dr. Marlenes to go around. We need really, I think, to coordinate mental health profession and the legal profession as much as possible,
Yes.
because we as an attorney, we have to be capable of litigating competently, uh, but it should be a last resort. And so there's no substitute for experience over the years. An attorney typically is going to gain experience in the courtroom. And through that experience, be able to better counsel their clients as to alternatives and options.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And you mentioned not being enough of me, and it's not me. I'd love to think it's me, but not enough therapists who do this kind of work. This is worth putting out there. More and more and more therapists do not want to work in the courts because it becomes so highly contentious and we get attacked. Our credibility gets attacked, things like that. And I mean, that's an attorney doing their job. People will say, oh, how awful of the attorneys. Well, they're doing their job. Is it awful? Yeah, but it's them doing their job, you know. I mean, it really is, though. That's your job. And I get that. But I think we need training. I think mental health professionals who are going to work in the court system need training on how to do exactly what we're talking about that our parents should do, and that is ignore that kind of behavior. We have to
Well,
ignore it too. Yeah.
I would think that for mental health professionals working in the courts, there's a high potential for burnout there.
Hmm.
And they need to be aware of that and exercise self-care. And
Yes.
as busy as you are, I don't know if you're doing that.
Actually, I am, and I will share because we talked about this just 2 days ago. I have a group of therapists that I get together with once a month, and we are all reunification therapists, or what we now call family systems therapists, and which I can come back to and explain in a minute. But we were talking just 2 days ago at our monthly meeting on how we have to take care of ourselves. And one person was saying how valuable the group is because that's our way of taking care of ourselves, is to bounce things off other therapists and have them say, oh yeah, that judge is tough, or oh yeah, that attorney is so difficult to work with, or so lovely and wonderful to work with. We talk about that stuff, but we do have to take care of ourselves because it's hard work. But we have to learn to just not be affected by what's being said to us or about us or whatever. And in doing that, here's the real key, I think. We're modeling for the parent how to act. And so when I'm on the stand and I'm being attacked by an attorney and I ignore it, I think that models for the, or don't react to it. When I say ignore it, of course I have to answer. But when I take the high road and answer in a calm, civil manner, I think that models for the parents, both parents, how to handle things like that.
I think that's true if the parents can be sufficiently astute during the
Yes,
hearing, listening, paying attention to what's being said,
right.
and understanding the impact of it. And sometimes that's difficult to ask a layperson to understand that. But it's our duty to prepare them to testify and to review what that's going to be like, to help them prepare for responding to cross-examination and so forth.
Yes. Well, and I sometimes point it out later to the parent what I said and how I responded. Like, you saw how your attorney or his or her attorney tried to bait me by saying such and such. And I don't know if you caught this, but my response was blah, 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 and point it out later and say, this is how we can respond without being affected. And it takes practice. I wasn't like that the first year I did this work. And I see why there is a high burnout rate. And there is. In fact, in our group the other day, we were talking about how a lot of therapists don't make it very many years doing this kind of work. Like they might do it for a year or two or three or four. And then at some point before too long, they're out. And I think I mentioned this on here before, that I had a judge thank me 6 times during a proceeding for being there and for being willing to assist the court, to testify, to help the judge figure out what's best for this family. And I think that speaks to, not just speaks to, but screams the problem we're having in the courts with therapists not wanting to do this type of work. And I did point that out to one of the parents. It was the mom that I said, you heard the judge thank me. That's because, and repeatedly. And I said, that's because nobody wants to do this work.
Well, we have to be careful in how we approach impeaching uh, a mental health professional.
Yes,
We're better served to be courteous, professional, and avoid the personal attacks.
yes,
If you want to impeach the professional based on the criteria that they use to reach their opinion, or on the background work that was done, that's fine. But basically, there's not a jury there. You're not going to get a lot of mileage out of trying to impeach a mental health professional who is credentialed with a master's or doctorate level. Uh, you're not going to get a lot of mileage out of that. The judge is
no.
typically going to almost step in and say, "Move on, counsel."
Right, right. Well, and I had a judge not long ago, and it was not the first or only time this has happened. But I had the judge point out to the attorney who was attacking me. He said, "Mr. Attorney, as I recall, your client chose Dr. Bizza." And and the attorney said, "Well, yeah, I believe we did, but we didn't expect blah 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 out of her, you know." And so, yeah, judges aren't stupid. They aren't stupid.
No, and again, I think they appreciate, for lack of a better verb, uh, the attorney who excuse me, the client who takes the high road
Mhm.
and actually is prioritizing the needs of their children over their own anger or fear.
Yes, yes, I would absolutely agree. And again, I'm not suggesting that what we're talking about here, what we're recommending, is easy. But that's why having a professional on the case might help. Even if you seek out a divorce coach on your own and have them just work with you, or a therapist on your own and just work with you, that will probably be a great investment in time and money and all of that to help you get through this in an appropriate way. But too often, people don't know to come to someone like myself. I mean, I'll just use myself as an example. They don't know to do that. And so by the time they realize, yeah, I should have had somebody kind of show me the ropes here. And of course, you as an attorney show them everything about testifying. I mean, you even take your clients in the courtroom ahead of time, an empty courtroom, and let them get a feel for the courtroom. But there's no one really out in the community or in the co-parenting relationship that is actively working on how to effectively co-parent.
Well, I think the creation of the parent coordinator decision maker was really a blessing for a lot of people. That
Yes.
role, I think, is a tremendously positive role to have, and I would speculate that most mental health professionals do a little therapizing when they're in that role.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's exactly why they have therapists typically fill that role. You can have an attorney PCDM. And I think often they function just fine and very effectively, maybe in some respects more effectively, because they know the law and legal aspects. But when it comes to human behavior and changing patterns of behavior or modifying thinking, things like that, I think it's really invaluable to have a mental health professional helping, and especially one who is well versed in this type of work.
Yeah, and I think coordination, again, seminars or something, presentations where mental health profession and the legal profession coordinate and teach each other are good things to have happen.
Yes, yes. And we'll talk more about that when we come back. Time for another quick break. But this is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. One thing I want to make sure I share with the audience today, George, so indulge me here. But, we're talking today about when the other parent says things they shouldn't and what to do and how to respond or not respond, which is the best response is no response. But sometimes our kids will also pick up on some of this. And maybe they aren't saying nasty comments to us, although they might be, but usually it's more gossiping on their part. And I just want to share a really good comeback I have. And I've shared this with you before, and I believe with our audience before. But for anyone who hasn't heard this, when I tell this during the level 2 co-parenting class, I tell the parents, this is the best thing I'm going to teach you today. And I mean that. What we're talking about here is kids going back and forth between parents, between households, and just gossiping. And we get caught up in it. And kids will say things like, you know what mom said? You know what she said about you? You know what grandma called you? And we get so easily sucked in and we'll go, what? What did she say? Well, let me tell you something about your grandmother. And it's on. It's on. Now it's just going to be a vicious, the other parent's going to tell the kid all this stuff about the first parent who started it. And that's just going to cycle back to the first parent who's going to come back again, especially if they were inclined to do it the first time. You can bet when you go back or when the kids go back with something you've said, that parent is not going to let it drop there. And so here's what parents should say to their kids. Take a minute, a second, not a minute, take a second, take a deep breath and say, well, did they want me to hear what they said about me? Did they think I was going to hear it? More importantly, is it going to make me feel good to hear it? If not, maybe you shouldn't share it with me. If they didn't intend for me to hear it, and it's not going to make me feel good to hear it, maybe you shouldn't tell me. Why are you telling me? I think that's beautiful. That puts the kid in check. It's like, stop gossiping. Why are you telling me this?
I
And
think
so
that's
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that's brilliant if the child is old enough to grasp the
What
message.
you're saying.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Well, sometimes we might have to break it down for them
right, right.
and say, I know you think I might want to hear what they said and that I should know, need to know, or whatever, but I really don't. And really, what you're doing amounts to gossiping. And you wouldn't want somebody gossiping about you. And give them an example. You wouldn't want your friend Susie going and telling your friend Nancy, and those are old names, aren't they? But anyway, that you said such and such about them, and just explain to them this is what gossip is. And this isn't good. It's not a healthy thing to do. And no, I really don't want to hear what your mom and her mom say about me, you know. But I think we have to take that high road again, but teach our children to take that high road. Our legacy in all of this is up to us. And when our kids become adults, do we want them to sit down with us and say, thank you for keeping me out of it? Or do we want them to say, why? Why did you have to put me in the middle? Why did you have to always talk bad about my dad or my mom? You know?
Yeah, I think that's true, and we have to stretch our clients' vision in terms of duration. That decisions and behavior that they're engaging in now will either pay dividends
Mhm.
or work a forfeiture of the relationship as their children become adults.
Yes. Yes, it absolutely will. And I think we forget too that our children are going to grow up. I mean, they're going to realize at some point what we were doing, that we
Mhm.
were manipulating them, that we were not shielding them from the conflict, that we were saying things about the other parent that hurt them. It's not hurting the other parent, they're not hearing you, but it's hurting the children. Children derive their identity from both of their
Mhm.
parents, and especially really young kids. You know this. Really young kids pretty much solely derive their identity from their parents. So when you put down a parent, you're putting down that child.
I think they almost instinctively recognize that, children.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and I don't know if there is such a thing as human instinct, but they seem to instinctively understand those things that you're talking about.
Yes. Yes. And we aren't thinking about the fact that they're sitting there thinking, well, if my mom is bad, I must be bad.
That
If my
too.
dad is, yeah, yeah. And so we really have to be careful in what we model, in what we share, in what we say. And especially, here's another good point. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this in what we allow others to say. Some parents are too happy to let someone else do their dirty work for them. They're all too happy to let a friend or a family member come in and say something negative about the other parent. And then we can say, well, I didn't tell my child that. I didn't say anything negative about his mom or dad. No, but you allowed someone else to. And I think there's culpability. And the court thinks, here's the important thing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the court believes there's culpability in the parent who allows that. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. And the court seems to be responsive to things which harm children, behaviors which
Hmm.
harm children.
Hmm.
And the judge is typically astute about that and understands that a parent who is degrading the other parent to the children or in the presence of the children is actually harming the children.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes. And I've had judges tell the parents. Because one time I had a dad blame his mom for something. And she said, you're responsible for your household and your environment that the child's in when they're with you. And if your mom is coming in and saying that, maybe it's time your mom not be around the child as much as she is. So they will
Yeah,
expect parents. Yeah, yeah,
it's that old situation of a step parent or a grandparent can be a blessing or a curse.
yes. They can be my biggest problem on the case, or they can be my greatest asset. And if we can all aspire to be the asset, to be around those who are the asset, that's what our kids need. And that's what we need to be focusing on and striving to do.
At what age, Dr. Marlene, is it appropriate for a child to say to a parent, I don't want to hear that about my mom, or I don't want to hear
At
that about my dad?
at any age. I start working with that, with kids on that when they are very young. If they tell me that the parent is saying things about the other parent and it hurts them, I work with them on saying, I always tell them, you have to be polite, you have to be respectful. Let's choose our words carefully, let's watch our tone carefully. And I explain, you're going to lose the message. And I tell them what that means, in kid
Mhm.
terms. Now the focus is going to be on you because you're being rude or disrespectful or impolite. But I work with them. I even practice with them in my office saying, Mom, Dad, I'd rather you not say that about my other parent. And they
Mhm.
learn at a young age to do that. That's an excellent question and observation.
I think
This
that's
is go ahead.
I think that teaching a child those skills, that's a skill set,
Mhm. Mm,
uh, is invaluable if you're going to have parents who are in conflict.
yes. And I have to tell you, I do think children of divorce, if there's one benefit, they do become insightful, they become able to speak up for themselves, all of these things, if there's people working with them and effectively working with them. But this can be a learning experience for all. It really can.
Well, and I think that's a great way to present to someone who's going through divorce, that it can be a learning experience, a growth experience for them. They can come out on the other side as better parents, better co-parents, and presenting the difficulty of divorce in that context is helpful.
Yes. Yes. And they know it when you say it because they're living it, but sometimes they haven't been able to put words to what they're feeling.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and yeah, and once you do that for them, they'll embrace it and they'll appreciate it. And they're sponges, they'll do what we do. So we have to set that good example and take the high road. All right, we are out of time again. Any final word, George?
Well, I think parents should try to litigate as a last resort in their
Yes.
divorce or separation case. That would be my last word.
Yes, and that's a mic drop, so we'll leave it right there. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.